Yat honestly. She Kendralynn Begay and she Ado Adona and Shinigi Kitlachini and Sean not Otanet Kachini Bashichin Ada and the Ashin Dashachedo no da Ashin A Dashanale Ado Big it ba hot zanade Akode a Yeside Nasha then lay Twidineshe de Asia ho Ado Ada a she Ultka Ishla the kindergarten don the what the hell get high school 12th grade AJ ado nana what the hell I bitziligi college de a University of New Mexico de Istka a cook a day shuttle com big it ba hotsange Pinon Elementary School in the China had the Istka agi adan lay Ashklatje the Ostka 5th grade de quit Shaoltka ako dina literacy deshne Edo da Navajo language Dine Bizaad akot elchin da Ostka ako Nihiza bin da hodil bin natje hat no akot elchin natnchtien ako huije quarters that has anje so quarter 1 quarter 2 quarter 3 quarter 4 ahot alchina da ostka ko le se be 8 standards desne what shaoltka ko alchina I have the same group of students for those weeks so 8 standards I can't say the actual weeks that they're in there because there are changes, there's breaks and stuff like that happen. So that's that. Let me share my screen here. Valencia, can you let me share my screen?
Okay. Yeah, that basically Nahla. Apologize for that. Gotcha.
Goodish. Shit.
Oh, I the slideshow give it yeah, then chido a full screen only. Share big home.
Hagoshi. How to recognize vowels and consonants still reading a book. Okay, waltka agi by yashtkit dole za an do zak eolia. Aro in the alchine bitche. Waltka ishi la nihicha ideshtka aro in the height a alchin na azohi ile aro in the height a Ostka dosto. Ishi by yashtkit dole. Ako aida dasisen ako dasisen she Miss Begay and she aro o kwa used to higi kintlachini baka kintlachini shle aro na totanet kachini bashchin aro da ashin dashedo no da ashin dashnala aro beg it ba hotzana de nasha Da because okay. Okay, za ando zaka. Het I ol yada nossen. So she don't kilpe hazinda. Okay. Za an a vowels ahisne. Abilganic etchigo. Aro in the zaka a consonant ahisne. Bilganic etchigo. Alchina a in the yidahos Bilganic etchigo. A bilpe da hazinde bil. Bisnahajil now a ik at deti. Ako o the nebazad o the ne etchigo yashtio a do hajo bilbeda hazinda. Ako bilaganig etchigo bisnahashneho a bilbeda hazin. Ako a she I don't the badest kan ako A-E-I-O a that ehigi a bilbeda hazin. You sata so dani se ako. A bebis nahashne the neck echo a then go. Aron da alchinyaj a height za ando zaka bispe hazindo. Ako on nank ahie when you ask a child what vowels and consonants are without explaining it in English. When I just ask a child, what they think za'an means, okay? Some that come from Navajo speaking homes, sa e oyo na kibestande, ada sa e doikita de tita. So we have students who understand because they hear the language at home. We have some students who kind of understand. They'll be talked to at home, but for them to respond, to speak back, is hard for them. And then we have those students who do not understand. So there's no Navajo language being spoken at home. And so when they come to school, it's new to them. But I always encourage them to learn, to try, that we're here to learn all together. That way they're more motivating. They self-motivate themselves. And then if all the students are in the classroom as having their peers there, they help one another. So I have that one student who will know, and help the class, and then that helps them want to learn. So the next day, they memorize it and they keep it in the back of their head. Okay, za'an e. So when I was teaching this to my kindergartners and first grade, it was a little hard. I was trying to explain vowels. They're just now, learning recognizing their letters and things like that. But when I explain it, za'an e be jinigo e haze'an at esha. So I tell them, remember when we are saying our vowels here, so I'll show some of the alphabets. When we are going over the vowels that have A, E, I, and O, okay, your mouth stays open, or you open your mouth to pronounce those, okay? So they'll try some letters on their own. And then I explain to them consonants, okay? So these are all the other words that do not have A, E, I, and O, okay? Zak, walia, okay? Zak, ejnigo, haze, do'anati. So usually your mouth kind of stays closed, and so I'll use the hand movements there, and like my hands opening and closing, and I'll close it. So that'll kind of help them. So najn tino had egida alla the cost so ada da hanal kiot aya bisbe hazinsa. Okay, so what I learn is for the younger kids, they like to see pictures, visuals, or videos. That helps them. So I take the extra time to produce some Google slides and go over that with them. So like I mentioned, there are 4 basic vowels. Okay, these vowels can be long or short. Okay, za'an e dios ade. Sa e daltse. Ada sa e danesle. Ada and high tones desle. Ada da nasal tones. Esto dahalo ako. A E I O. Okay, so what I mentioned about opening your mouth, closing your mouth, having your teeth clenched together, things like that, those help you to say them, okay? Akodi ben kindergarten do first grade, second grade in jano. Chike edano, ye edanite. Are tra di do ashkat. So third, fourth, and fifth graders. They're more alert. They're older, so they think it's funny. Yeah, okay, just to say the letters. But I'm like, it sounds just the same. You know, we just add certain. We give it a higher tone for if they have high tones, nasal tones. Okay, and I said you need to pay attention. Okay, so pay attention on how these long vowels sound, short vowels, if they have the high tones or nasal tones, because it can change the meaning of a word. So I'll give them examples like that. But I think they're just older, they're shy, they're at that age, and they tend to giggle, like you say a, okay, ah, oh, and you do the mouth movements like that. They think it's funny. So that's one of the things that I notice with the older kids. Okay. A, the vowel A, English, like father. Aranda E, the vowel E is pronounced like the letter E in the English word let. So I, the vowel I is pronounced like the I in the English word it. Aranda kid a O. The vowel O is pronounced like the O in the English word hope. Oh, hope, hope. Okay. Short vowels. Okay, short vowels are A, E, I, and O. Okay. Short vowels that appear once in itself. So here are some words that I just listed. The za'an, al-tsisigo dalyagi, osa njakwe, al-tsahigi bika a cha. Cha is a hat. Okay. Nana huna a shidde vehicle. Aranana akune kos clouds. Is it goat? Kea land. Masa cat. Shema my mother. Ada kere sid smoke. So these are just examples, but when I'm saying them with the kids, okay, we have a big vowel chart here and we'll go through them. Okay, so the first week is just introductions of how to say the vowels. Okay, the next week we learned putting them into a word. Okay, so the vowel chart will show the letter, and then it'll show the word and a picture. So this has really helped the students comprehend and understand which are vowels, because the vowels in there will be highlighted a different color. So it helps them memorize that. So that's a good way to point out and see which are vowels in the words. Okay, so short vowels. Okay, so I talked about, we have long vowels also. So za'an, danezgi. Okay, so these are long vowels. The vowel AA is pronounced like the letter A in the English name, Nora. The vowel EE is pronounced like the letter E in the English word bend. The vowel II is pronounced like the I in the name Tina. And the vowel OO is pronounced like the O in the English word low. Example of words with long vowels. The Zaan danezigi kwel keshja. Sod. Sod are words. Okay. So when I go over these with the students, and benanishkino a shelta bendishni ada be ade shjendan. Deoltrathe. So next, J gum. Your necklace. Dlon is a prairie dog. Nadan, corn. Ahwe, coffee. The nane bahut nishnegi diacritical marks ahisne. Diacritical marks indicates or tells us if a vowel has a high tone or nasal tone. Okay, so it's important to pay attention to the diacritical marks as they give out. They can give the word a different sound or change the meaning. Okay, so you need to pay attention and pronounce the words as they have a high tone or a nasal tone. So this is what I, tell the children, because sometimes they don't want to pay attention or want to do something else. And I tell them, when we're going around and we're going to pronounce these words and I call on you to say this word, okay, you have to remember the high tones, the nasal tones, short vowel, long vowel, those are all important. Okay, and if you miss one of those pronunciation, then you change the whole meaning of the word. Okay. The sad diacritical marks the so video biajo dohot abej ni sad gise. Okay. So high tones are known as the intonation mark when it is used specifically with vowels. So this makes them have the higher pitch. For example, the short vowel A with the high tone is A. E high tone E. I high tone I. O high tone O. Ado kojo biag A nasal tone. So this is short vowels. These are all short vowels. A nasal tone is on. E nasal tone is in. I nasal tone in. O nasal tone on. Okay, so as I mentioned at the beginning, okay, these are the nasal tones are the one that will come from your nose. High tones are known as intonation marks. So this is specifically used with vowels, just having them have that higher pitch, like I said. So we have A high tone, the short vowel A high tone. And then we have the long A with the high tones. Kujo A, Adam, Zaan, Nezigi A, A. E high tone, short vowel, Kujo A, long vowel, E high tone, I high tone, I, high tone, I, O high tone, O, and then long O high tones, O. So some examples of these are the be, sheep, shide, vehicle, twa, water, the, this one, jade, antelope, ba, bread, de, tea, do, and. Nasal tone is known as a nasal mark. So these vowels are pronounced with air going through the nose. Okay. The A's on hachi hachite bejni be ajnite. So A high tone, A long vowel high tone or nasal tone or nasals. Sorry. E nasal tone, E nasal nasal, I nasal tone, I nasal nasal, O nasal, and O nasal nasal. So just some example of words here are nishant. As you can see, the A with the nasal tone and then the glottal mark here. Okay. But there's a sudden stop there because there's a nasal tone there. So nishant. Okay, asking a question here. What about you? Let's go. Fire. Son, star. A long vowels. October. Deer. Smooth. So the vowels can have both intonation and nasal marks. Okay. So the A can now have a high tone and it can have a nasal tone on short vowels and long vowels. Examples here. Examples. Ashon, I am eating. Holo, it exists. Asan, the woman. DJ, today. Then, we got a glottal here. From there. Clean, horse. We also have high tones that may fall or rise, meaning on the first word, they may have a high tone, and then the second word, there's no high tone. So, okay, that's what we call, well, what I'm referring to as a fall or a rise, okay? A high tone, and then there's the A here, no high tone. Or A high tone, nasal, A nasal, okay? So just some example. Beso, falling tone here. Okay. Money, beso. Dola, bull. Bilisana, apple. Yiskongo, tomorrow. Consonants in Navajo. Okay. So we just finished talking about vowels. Okay. Zaanigi, let's go. Bayeltje. Ade zagto. Okay, consonants are zagta. So the consonants in Navajo are B, C, D, G, H, J, K, L, M, N, S, T, W, X, T, Z, /L, glottal mark. Okay, so these are the consonants. And there's no words that begin with the letter X in the Navajo language, okay? the letter C also can never stand alone. Okay. The dinig echo sad bitch dodoni ligi x alongi bitten out on the C, the letter C do asaha be sad idoda the wiltkagi be hashdod zihigi itten. So there's no letter C, a word that starts. I guess the C doesn't stand alone. It has to come with another word, and then I'll cover that next. That talks about digraphs, but that'll be in the next slide. Akodi consonants. You said yislinigi zakla. Consonants are zakla. So here you don't see the A, E, I, O anymore. Okay, they're all the other letters listed here. Those are consonants. Zakla. Ba, bread. The be, sheep. Ga, rabbit. Bush, cactus. Josh, ball. Ke, shoes. Lajish, gloves. Shit, smoke. Ma'i, coyote. Ne, you. Sin, song. Twa, water. Wilichi, ant. Yego, try hard. Zaban, lips. Okay. I didn't add a word here that normally goes before a word that starts, let me see, what have I seen? In the Navajo dictionary or some of the books or the courses that I took, they have a glottal starting first, and then A high tone, M, A high tone. That is a ma, okay, that's how they start it. That is just how the word is put there, or the consonant is used, okay? So next, I was talking about digraphs, when two consonant letters represent one sound, okay? Example of two consonant letters that represent a sound, CH, ch. DL, A, gla, za, la, wa, ch, gl, z, the, wa, ch, gle, z, gl. So these are just some consonant letters that are will make the sound, okay? But there, if you put some words together, okay, there can be some words like cha, okay, beaver. Didset, okay, so the berries, things like that, or DLO, glon. Okay, so these are known as digraphs. So when two consonant letters represent one sound. Okay, so that's a good example of when the letter C can't be used alone. Okay, has to come with another consonant in order to make a word. Okay. Right. Ako alchina e ultkage di Dine Bizaad keyboard yidahol. So the students here, the higher levels, I've introduced the Dine Bizaad keyboard. So you can install this through your Google page, your Google homepage. This can be installed there, and this is what the students have started using since we went to using our Google Classroom. The Dine Bizaad keyboard ahilne e bishbe da hazin So they know how which keys work with giving a high tone, nasal tone, or having both high tone, nasal tone, glottal, things like that, the slash ow, okay? So there's the Dine Bizaad keyboard here, A. So if you want to use a high tone, it's the key here with a question mark and the slash. On the A nasal tone, okay? So these are listed here of what keys we use for the Dine Bizaad keyboard. Because the yeah, the host I don't know how you say typing. The neck keyboard. Ahisne ako the injuno ye the host ako sad ye the ink auto and the zak. So here's the chart I was talking about. Zak the. So these are just the names of or the sounds that we could use for the consonants, starting with the nasal tone B. So here's just a chart for you guys to see, but I have a bigger chart in the classroom that I take with me in the classroom for the students to go over. So it has the letters like this here. And then it has, so normally we'll go through and say the letters first. Okay, the sounds, I mean, of the letters. For example, B, B. Okay, B. We'll go down and say each, just the sounds first is how we go over them. And CH, CH, glottal, okay. D, DL, gl, DZ, Z, okay. So just to have them recognize the sounds, okay. Okay, die benda di nitla. Oh, yeah, adani la di kwe yisohagi. Okay, so we haven't gotten far as identifying or making words that will use these consonants. Okay, but as soon as we move on throughout the quarter, okay, my goal here is to have the children make words using the consonants, okay? So kind of coming up with our own chart, like I talked about the big chart we have in our classroom, but making our own so that they're understanding the letter sound, they're recognizing which are vowels and consonants, but at the same time, okay, thinking of words that fall in that category, okay? There's not just one word, okay, that will fall in that category. There's several words that can be listed. But from there, my next goal is to have them draw or think of a drawing that will go to make this chart, okay? So that's our goal to work towards. All right, so let me see, what was another thing? For Za'an and Za'ta. There's just a short presentation on vowels and consonants. Okay, it goes more into depth. So we just stopped here at talking about high tones, nasal tones, falling tone, rising tones. Okay, it goes a little more complex, like A-I, A-E. So combining different type of nasal tones like O-I, this, dui, okay, how some of those words come about. So it gets a little more complex, but I feel like that's for a higher level, and I just do the basic introduction part for the kids. And from there, my goal here is to have them recognize the sounds, okay? So the letters first, the sounds, how to pronounce a word, and then how to write it, and from there how to read it. So it's kit nahas ango as china yehdahodos often sino ahot ae benatnstkin ko say o Danish on yedahos ko ado ye etan no aronda yin da azodo aronda a kid deos trato ko ado ahot ae baban ses cases chin ko she ahota iltra she the a immersion program deithne ko she haishi was in it. I attended a program like that when I was in primary school is what they called it, and we were taught in English and Navajo. Cool. They been it. As an anjet that's a didn't catch up at this although to be only such odd that's ajo a Dine Bizaad Wo na kits odd only trajet that's a Bilgan Bizaad الكيلت أنا هذا بين الشدة تقا أخد أي بحث it is possible okay قال شنا يهودس also بهز a lot of people I hear that it has to be, you know, spoken at home and stuff like that, but it can be learned يهودس also don't but it has to be taught to them and shown them correctly and how, like in different levels. So that's how I learned it. I didn't learn it overnight. I didn't learn it just like that, but I guess another thing that helped was having grandparents speak the language and hearing it, but the writing, the reading is what I mostly learned at school. Height A nazo Adam height A was Begay Jebahos a question a at Ben Anstien Ado a yobohanetle ko Nanstien. So I do really enjoy it teaching them. Okay, so some are shy. Okay, some don't really want to speak it at first. I don't know Navajo, you know, get stuff like that. But I'm like, we're all here to learn. Okay, I encourage them, and that's how we start from there. Or some kids will be saying that they don't speak it at home, and I'm like, it's okay, you know, that's why you come to school to learn. So that's how I'm teaching them so far, and it's been fun. So how a story can be told. So there are different ways a story can be told. Stories nowadays they have through video, movie, verbally, okay, without any visuals. There's also audiobooks now that are out there. So story can be told through that, or hard copy, an actual paper book. So those are the different ways a story can be told. But okay, so I'm just asking a question, how some of you first listened or first heard your first story. So there are differences. I'll tell you a little bit about how I first heard my first story. Okay, so Anastasia da she le twidine shit the she ho at the shniko. Chanela skido chanela sta in le narrow canyon off the Sebi discredo twidine shit bitkaidata. Right in the middle of Monument Valley and Kayenta, there's a place called Narrow Canyon. I would go there a lot. Okay, so such a no just the kaha Chanela bajan unko unko ishi ya has netsa. Okay, so every time she always had a story. It was from Chanela story if it's ando easy. So for my not what do we call them now? Nolly lady, Nolly girl. Chanela is song. Okay, if it's ando hanne. So that's okay. So when I first heard my first story, there's no electricity out there. Okay, so there was no phones, there's no internet, no computer, laptop. My paternal grandmother couldn't read or write, okay, or any of that. But the way I heard her story was verbally. Okay, and her stories were passed down generation to generation. So I it's but she always had a story. It depended on the season. Okay, so she'd be like, the story can only be told at this time, around this time, and things like that. So a lot of it came with taboos of do's and don'ts of when and where you can tell them. The first story I heard was in the winter time, right? So that's where I heard my first story, and it was all verbal. So you had to sit there, pay attention, and show that you're paying attention. Okay, so or laughing. So that's how I remember my first story. Okay, so that's how I remember her telling the coyote, what do we call them now, coyote stories. And you had to use your imagination, you had to picture everything and see how it was like. But it's amazing. It's something. It's interesting, to think about like how you understood all of that, and you would picture it visually, and yeah. So I always thought about mine. Only had good memory, right? She would when she reaches the funny part of the story, she would laugh and tell it and things like that. Or there was a part to the story where she would sing, right? So that's how I remember my first story. And I started reading when I was in probably first, second grade. Okay, but I don't recall reading my first English book. Okay, like I said, I attended like an immersion program. I do remember my first book was Keys, right? So everybody heard that song. There's a song about a dog named Keys, but I read the story. That was the very first one I remember. Okay, but so that's how I remember my first book. But I started reading to the students. So okay, so most of our books they're made quite a few years back, so they're not really eye-catching. They're not really colorful. Okay, most of the books are black and white. Okay, so just recently they started making more books that have more color and things like that to them. But here's a book I wanted to read on the UNM website. So if you follow this,
I'll put it in the chat.
okay. So Valencia will put that in the chat there, and you guys can follow the link or look at the link of where you could find these books online. I'm trying to share my book here. Sorry, I don't use Zoom. So. No, don't either. Oh, Adish. Kiddish. Yeah. Okay, so this first book I chose here on the UNM website. Okay. Irene, Silent Man, Ayla, Otto, Carol, McCarney, A, Nash, Di Chalet Chan. Chalet Chan Gahike Ilwal. Chalet Chan Tlon Ike Ilwal. Chalet Chan. Sorry, some of the words are cut off. I can't really read it. Okay, so this is a type of bird. I think it says jogi. Okay. Ike Ilwas. Chalet Chan Masa Ike Ilwas. Akwande Chalet Chan Maido Yil Ike Ilwasta. Okay. So there's a short book. There's one of these books in the classroom, and I read this with the students. That's why I want to share it. It talks about Chalet Chan, meaning my dog. Okay. So usually I talk about this or read this book after we talk about verbs, learning about verbs. Okay. So here, the Chalet Chan is talking about this. Here's my dog. And then he went into, so I kind of asked him, what does this picture show before I read it? What is the dog doing? And I'll be like, he's running after the rabbit, or he's trying to eat the rabbit. You know, they'll have their own representation of the story. And then I'll say, okay, so you see that the dog's running after the rabbit. Okay, that's exactly what is being written here, is what I'll explain to them. So we'll go there and then identify Chalet Chan, meaning dog, ga, rabbit, Ike is what he's running after it. Okay, so kind of really breaking down the words and identifying the verb, the noun, okay, things like that. So that's how we usually read the book and go over that. So read one more short book here. Dish hal kidasa muscle gaibaka.
Oh,
Agashi. Muscle. So muscle talks about a cat that is white. So usually I read this right after I've introduced colors, introduced the animals and things like that. That way the student is now understanding and knowing what their colors are, what type of different animals there are. So that helps them understand the story more, and they'll be able to tell me things. So Masilkei Ostkagodeya and Basisi. Akot all Belatsoye datol neko Basi Kate datilwood. A teen go you got the clean lay Banilkla. Ado Masilkei Basi Kate datia. Achan gently behilt loge. Masilkei teen got nijine. Adult or datilwood. So I'll read a book like this to the student and stop here and ask and see if they understand what's going on. Because if I just keep reading and reading in Navajo, okay, they're not, some of them are not understanding and I lose them as children have short attention spans. So it's important for me to stop and pause here and ask and kind of, explain and go over or translate or transcribe what was being said here, okay? For example, the white cat, is here sitting on the horse. They'll say something like that because that's what they see. Ado, hanahot, I'll ask them things like that. So that way they're understanding, but I will go ahead and just keep reading. A tingo you gotten then Sana Basle Banilta. Ado Masilke Basi Kate Datia. Achanjet Sana Bas Bis Nin Bansko. Masilke Tkinko Chenegene. Ado O Datil what a Datil. A tingo you gotten then Sana Bas Bajadle Banilta. Ada Masilke Basi Kate Datia. Achanjet Sana Bas Bajad Bislin Bansko. Masilke Tkinko Chenegene. Ada O Datilwood. A tingo you gotten in Chidele Banilta. Ada Masilke Basi Kate Datia. Achanjet Chidibisnil would go. Masilke. Tkinko Chenegene. Ada O Datilwood. A tingo you gotten in Chidibike Banilta. Ada Masilke Basi Kate Datia. Achanjet Chidibike Bisnil would go. Masilke Bas Yanatza. Ado Masilke Bilhajongo Bas Yihilwood. Who did you Okay, so that story was about Masilke, the white cat, right? About he missed the bus and he found all these different ways to catch up with the bus. And in the end, he was happy. He got in the bus that he caught up with it. Goshi Akudijitla.